This video is now in session, and the 2021 New York City mayoral election is happening very soon. The primary season, which is most likely going to be the biggest thing for this election, is happening on June 22nd, 2021. So we're mainly going to take a look at the Democratic primaries today, primarily because the Republican primaries are not really that important, because whoever wins the Democratic primary in New York City is likely to win the actual election come November 3rd, I believe, November 2nd. So there are a total of 23 candidates, I believe, that are running for the Democratic primary. Oh no, not 23, 13. But even though there are 13 candidates, we're only going to look at Eric Adams, Kathryn Garcia. We are going to take a brief look at Dianne Morales and Scott Stringer, and then we're going to take a look at Maya Wiley and Andrew Yang. The rest of the candidates we're not really going to take a really good look at because Sean Donovan, Raymond McGuire, both of them are unlikely to win this election, and we're also not going to take a look at the other candidates. So for the what's happening in the New York City mayoral election right now is that, in terms of the frontrunner, Andrew Yang is no longer the frontrunner. Instead, Eric Adams is the frontrunner, and this has been really only been determined by polls. But generally speaking, if we're looking on the ground in New York City, we're seeing a lot less, support for Andrew Yang, like enthusiastic support for Andrew Yang, and he had been one of his campaign stops had to be stopped because a heckler ruined the campaign, and as a result, Andrew Yang is now doing closed campaigns. So he's still doing them outside. He's still probably going to do them outside, but instead of publishing the campaign dates, instead he's going to open it up to just a few people, which is a very bad idea when he's no longer the front runner and where he's at this point practically the same position Joe Biden was in the Iowa primaries. It's not a good decision to do that. But we'll take a better look at that. But currently, though, Eric Adams is the front runner. And then Kathryn Garcia is close to Andrew Yang at third place. Now, again, this is only on polls, which is not really the best determinant. And then if we keep going further, we have Scott Stringer, and then where is Maya Wiley? Maya Wiley is behind Scott Stringer, but she is starting to pull through more, and we'll also explain more about the progressive part of the Democratic primary. So Eric Adams, using this ranked choice voting, he ends up with 58% of the vote compared to Andrew Yang's 42%, which is not really that close. And then compared to this, Emerson College, Ipsos made that poll, by the way. Emerson College gives Kathryn Garcia, by the end of this, 55%, and then Eric Adams is in second with 45%. And then you can see there's a bounce back here between Andrew Yang and Eric Adams. And then before that, it was all Andrew Yang. Now, this very much reflects the 2013 election between Bill de Blasio and as well as Christine Quinn, I believe. She was polling she was polling ahead of most people until the end of the election, the end of the primary election, when Bill de Blasio pulled out ahead. And that's how Bill de Blasio was able to win against Christine Quinn. And you can see the election results right here. In total, Christine Quinn got 15% of the votes. Bill de Blasio got 40% of the votes. Now, currently speaking, what's happening with the New York City mayoral election is, let's take a look at each candidate. So Eric Adams is centering his candidacy more and more around crime and how he can take over the crime operations of New York because he was a former NYPD captain. And through that qualification, he believes that he is able to regulate crime in New York City, which has been rising at a rapid pace. Kathryn Garcia, the former commissioner of the NYC Department of Sanitation, wants to bring New York City back to its former glory before the pandemic hit. And she also is trying to position herself as more of the regular kind of Democrat. So not like a conservative Democrat that Andrew Yang and Eric Adams is, nor progressive Democrats like Maya Wiley and Scott Stringer are trying to portray, as Kathryn Garcia is trying to be more in between of those two groups. So if I were to give a comparison to her and candidate in the presidential election in 2020 for the Democratic primary. I'd say she's most she's kind of like Kamala Harris. It's not the perfect match, but I'd say somewhat similar to Kamala Harris in her campaign in terms of her ideology. And then going down further, oh yeah, Kathryn Garcia, by the way, last time I made a video about the New York City mayoral election, she has been endorsed by the New York Times editorial board, and that's a pretty important endorsement because everyone sees that. And or at least most people in New York know the New York Times, and a lot of New Yorkers read the New York Times. So she shot up in polls after that endorsement. You can see she went all the way up there, and that really helped her, and that's why we're talking about her. Otherwise, we would not have talked about Kathryn Garcia, because she would have otherwise been in the same place as Dianne Morales. And Dianne Morales tried to portray herself somewhat to how Maya Wiley is portraying herself right now. She wanted to be a progressive that could take over Scott Stringer's coalition to be a progressive mayor of New York. But her campaign has been faltering and faltering. More people have left her campaign, and it's not going to really go anywhere at this point. Now, Scott Stringer, we mentioned about him as well. He has since received a second sexual assault allegation, which is even worse for him. And at this point, it's very unlikely that Scott Stringer is going to win. And it's unlikely that he's actually going to even get most of the progressive votes. The person who'll get most of the progressive votes is Maya Wiley. Now, Maya Wiley, last time, we didn't really cover her that much, but this time we're covering her a lot more, primarily because she has become the new progressive candidate to take over Scott Stringer's coalition. And if we scroll down, you can see all of these endorsements here. The only real endorsement left is Jerry Nadler and maybe a couple of state legislatures, but that's practically it. But for Maya Wiley, her endorsement list is growing. If we go down here, you can see that she's gotten the endorsement of a U.S. senator, the only candidate to have a U.S. senator endorse her, or to have any U.S. senator endorse a New York City mayoral candidate in this election so far. And Elizabeth Warren was a senator who endorsed Wiley. And then here we have a lot of U.S. representatives endorsing her: Jamal Bowen, Yvette Clarke, Hakeem Jeffries, a very important name, one of the most powerful individuals, Democratic individuals in New York. We also have AOC, and then Nydia Velázquez and Katie Porter, all of these progressive representatives. So she's becoming the new progressive voice. And then finally, we have Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang used to poll a lot higher. Now he's in a very risky place. As we mentioned before, he is in the same position that Joe Biden was in Iowa, which is that he's kind of underperforming expectations, and he used to be the front runner, and now he's no longer the front runner. So those are the main candidates in the New York City election. In terms of the candidate that's getting the most amount of hate by other candidates, as in negative attack ads and as well as insults fired towards them, it's mainly Andrew Yang still. Even though he's no longer the front runner, people are still attacking him the most out of any candidate, even though right now Eric Adams practically is the front runner. So who knows, that may very well help Eric Adams. Now, Andrew Yang, one of the main things that he's trying to do as his closing argument is to criticize Bill de Blasio. And that might seem a little bit weird because there's so many other candidates here. Why would you criticize a person who's not even running for the New York State mayoral election? But it's actually a pretty smart strategy to criticize Bill de Blasio, because de Blasio is not very well liked by a lot of New Yorkers at this point. He's pretty unpopular for all of his policies and all the lack of action that he's done to actually help New York. New York has constantly lost population, and it will continue to lose population, and it will continue to lose its glamour. And Bill de Blasio is part of the problem in many New Yorkers' opinions. So Andrew Yang is criticizing Bill de Blasio, saying that he has a different future that could actually improve New York, and that's a smart strategy because it doesn't give attention to any other candidate. It doesn't give any spotlight to any other candidate, and then it also spotlights yourself and your own policies. So that's something that Andrew Yang plans to do. Eric Adams, what he plans to do is most he's gonna continue talking about crime, but he's also gonna start pulling out more attack ads on other candidates besides Andrew Yang, so like Kathryn Garcia and Maya Wiley. And then for Kathryn Garcia, she needs to break out even more than she currently is. So for the next New York City debate, she's definitely going to have to overperform in order to get a lot more votes or a lot more last minute votes. And then that's the same thing that Maya Wiley will have to do. She'll have to be able to pull out in time. She doesn't have a lot of time to win the election. Right now, it's currently June 8th, and June 22nd, not June 8th, it's like June 10th or June 9th that I'm publishing this video. But June 22nd is coming very close, and Maya Wiley might be just a little bit too late to get to that front runner position. If this happened like 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks before the publication of this video, then it would have been very likely that Maya Wiley would mount a very big campaign, but she might just be about too late. And then Scott Stringer, Dianne Morales, these two candidates, very unlikely that they have any saving grace. And those are the main candidates that are going up in the Democratic primary, and how they plan to use their time in the final 2 weeks before the New York City mayoral election happens. Now, ranked choice voting is definitely going to be interesting here. It could definitely help Andrew Yang, who has the most name recognition of any candidate. But at the same time, in the ranked choice voting polls, Eric Adams is pulling out ahead of Andrew Yang. So again, it's going to be very interesting to see how ranked choice voting happens in this election, and to see if it actually helps any candidates or degrades any kind of candidates. So that's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it. We will do a New York City mayoral election prediction, and then we're also probably going to do a reflection of that election in the coming days after June 22nd, and that's primarily because we're from the New York City area, partisan satire. So obviously we're paying a close attention on this race because New York City is one of the biggest cities in the United States, if not the biggest. So that's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it. This video is now adjourned, and I'll see you in the next one.